Let's see.
And so this is going to come on your page, right?
Yes, on my Suzie Cheel Inspires page. So we are we live?
Yes, it says up there. We're live.
We're live.
We're live.
Okay.
We're still, does it say live in for? Oh, yes, we're live. We are.
We are live.
Yeah.
We are
Mind your
live.
language.
Well, this is welcome to episode 25 of the Abundance Show. This is where we talk about loving ourselves into abundance, living an abundant life. But today is a really special day. Normally there is just me and one other person on. But today, because it's Valentine's Day, I've got here the beautiful soulmate, love of my life, and my business partner, Des Walsh. And on the other thing, I have got another friends and business colleagues of ours, Elizabeth and Simon Walker.
Elizabeth,
Hi.
And we're going to start with that. Wonderful. We're starting with a sneeze. Okay.
We're just blessing everyone.
That's fine. While we're okay, what I always do as we start the show, as most of you know, or maybe a lot of new people here don't know.
Right, we've still got a couple of minutes.
We've still got
so we could just have a little.
Well, we'll have a little. Do you want to say who you are? Do you want to give them something? And then I'll get Elizabeth and Simon to do a little bit of an intro before I start. And I'm just going to go and share this to my
You're going to seize the moment. Okay.
I'm going to seize the moment while you're doing
that. So in the business world, I'm excuse me, got a little frog in the throat this morning. I'm a digital entrepreneur from way back, and currently that expresses itself as being a specialist in affiliate marketing, and have a platform that I introduce people to so they can learn all how to be a successful affiliate marketer. And I'm sorry about this, I'll drink of water. And I also have been a coach, business coach for quite a long time. And so I still keep a bit of that going.
Yes, you need to move that way a bit.
No, I need to move that way.
Yeah,
you got to get it right.
Right, you can move that way. Right, okay. We've never done this before with 4 people.
We're experimenting.
Oh, look, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Innovating. So is that enough about me?
That's enough about you, unless there's anything else you would like to share. Okay.
Well, I suppose the kind of connecting thing from that is that I have what drives me as in business is to help people realize their greatness. And that might sound very grand, but I was inspired by that by a former mentor, the late Thomas Leonard, the great coach, who once said he had spent years trying to find his life purpose, and one day he decided just to be great. And so I find that most people that I coach really like the idea of finding their greatness and then expressing that in some way. So that's what drives me. And I'm going to stop talking now for a moment. Over to you.
Right, over to Elizabeth.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us on, Suzie. So what I do is I'm actually a trainer in neuro-linguistic programming, and Simon backs me up significantly. He calls himself the backstop, and he's probably the best one anyone could have. Mm-hmm. And what we do is pretty similar, Des. We inspire people to find their greatness through changing the languaging that they use with themselves and with others in order to create a future that they really are compelled to live.
Lovely. That's great.
Yeah.
And Liz took my words away about being the greatest backstop.
But okay, so what else can you tell us about you, Simon? Besides, he's a great hugger, by the way.
Yep.
I think we're all good huggers.
And now Suzie took something away. I've got no words left. I've done all sorts of things in my life, and that's brought me to this place, to be in Australia, to have come from England, to have met this wonderful woman on Tinder, no less, because I think that's always a good line.
I think it's a brilliant line.
And to support each other in supporting other people is just an amazing thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Susie?
Right.
There'll be
Well,
people who don't know who you are.
There are people who don't know. I can see that we've
Not
got
many, but there'll be
I've
some.
got about 7 people watching, and I can't see that. I can't see on here where they're showing up.
Oh, well.
I'll get that in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, this man I met probably over 31 years ago. I met him through the art world when I was a textile artist, and we were both on the board of the New South Wales Craft Council.
Yeah.
And I have to tell this story because it's fun. How we got together was I had my own textile art business, Suzie Cheel Hand Painted Originals. And I had a student who was winning the top prize in her fashion college with using the fabric I had painted. And she said, I had to come to this fashion parade. And she said, I thought all my friends were a bit sick of fashion parades or modeling for me or something at that point. So I'd had a glass of red. I rang Des.
And I'd had 2 glasses of red.
And he had 2 glasses of red. He said yes. And we went to that show. And the following night, it was the bicentennial here in Australia, and we went. He had tickets for this amazing Japanese sound and light show in the Botanical Gardens, and that is
Never looked back.
31 years ago, and we've never looked back. Has it always been perfect? No.
Oh, okay.
Well, it hasn't. Things have ups and downs, and some of those you'll hear about as we go through today, and how we support one another and how we can actually work because we both have home-based business. We all have home-based businesses, and we work from home.
Yeah.
But who am I? I'm an intuitive artist. I'm the creator of the Heart Whisper Oracle guidance cards that came out of my own healing journey, and I'm a intuitive mentor and reader and a lover of life,
and a very good cook.
Oh yes, he thinks he lives in a restaurant, so it is.
I can cook, but I can't compete.
And I suppose one of the things I thought many years ago when I first came online was, why didn't I start a food blog rather than, abundant self-love blog? So interesting.
She doesn't like ironing, so I did the ironing.
Yes, right. So today I was thinking, right, it's Freedom Friday. It's Valentine's Day. What will we do?
I'm just going to say one thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to run out of things to talk about.
No, I don't think we will.
Definitely not.
Judging by previous conversations, we're not going to run out.
Every day I draw a card. And today, as I was saying, what's the message for the world? This is where I think I really have to, somebody called me a psychic the other day. I don't own it. I'm about to own it. And out came the love card on Valentine's Day. I just thought that was perfect. And for those of you who don't have my cards, which you can get on my website, is feel the love within you. Allow it to say, I love you, and give yourself an inner namaste. So you bring that back to your heart. Now, Des and I, for 15, 16, 17 years, every morning we namaste one another.
Yeah, namaste.
Namaste. The divine in me honors the divine in you. We learned that from a person I've done a lot of training with and supported in their trainings is Brandon Bays. And she once said when we were assisting at one of her trainings, if everybody did this every day, there would be a lot of love and peace in the world.
Yeah.
So that is one of our daily practices that we do. And if we're away from one another, we either do it on the phone or we ring or send a text message, depending where we are. So that's one of our daily practices because we've titled this Lovers in Business.
Yep.
So one of ours, what we do is a little bit different, but of a similar, I guess, honoring perspective. So when we wake up, we ask, what are you grateful for today? And then we take it in turns to answer. And then we ask, I ask myself, what do I love more about Simon today than I did yesterday?
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, I love that.
Tell him. And then he asks, what do I love more about Elizabeth today than I did yesterday? And we talk about that.
Beautiful.
And then what do we love more about our children? Because there's 6 of them today than what we did yesterday. And that's sometimes a challenging one.
I can imagine.
Because they're all teenagers and young adults. So, it can be a bit tricky. And then we actually created something that was really specific to business a long time ago. And it's, what are 3 ways I can make money today? And those 3 ways can sometimes be something absolutely ridiculous. Like, I could pick grass and squeeze it and make green juice and sell it. Now, someone actually ran with that idea, right? And it's called wheatgrass, and they make a lot of money. But you can come up with lots of different ideas. And what it does is it actually gets your creative mind running. And it's not about the money. It's about the creativity that comes with, well, how could we create that? The other thing we ask is, how can we make someone else's life better today? Yeah. And when you ask that, again, it gets that creative mind running and it allows you to always operate from that place of abundance, knowing that we have everything that we need and that we can gift that out to others.
Oh, I absolutely adore that. I will type that up in the show notes. And it looks like we've got a couple of new early morning practices.
Sounds like it.
I think that's beautiful, Liz. And I think that those people, a lot of people will be watching the replay, and please put replay when you're watching, because I come back and comment on everybody's. And I can see we have people watching. We'd love you to say hello. And if you've got any questions you would like to ask us, please feel free. Because what I'm going to do now,
put the comments,
they can do that on the screen there. But the comments, I should be able to see the comments here.
Yeah, I can see the comments. The only person that's commented so far is me.
Right. Okay. Well, we had a lot of people who accepted yesterday. Right.
Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul. I just want to share a story now about some very close friends of mine from Sydney who came up to visit us. This was Ross and Jeannie, who came to visit us and to stay many years ago. And we were living in a house which had a very large lounge room, and we had our office in the lounge room because that meant we looked out to this beautiful garden.
Yep.
And I remember Ross saying, we couldn't do this. They had a very large 3-story house in Balmain. And they said, we couldn't possibly work in the same space. They did things so differently. Whereas I suppose we're very blessed. We've been working in the same space for 28 years or a long while. Because we had our home in Lilyfield. We had a purpose-built studio. So I did all the painting downstairs. I had my showroom upstairs, and Des had an office that was beautifully set out. But we've always worked together on businesses as well. I've supported him with graphics and other things, and now Des supports me. I'm at the moment, I borrow a lot of his belief, a lot of Elizabeth's belief in me, because I was holding back. But without Des, I might not still be doing what I'm doing.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? It's that support that you have for each other, and particularly that belief, because we all need to borrow belief sometimes. There's very few people who have 100% belief in themselves 100% of the time. And being able to have someone who's got your back and who you can borrow belief from, whether it's even in your partnership or whether it's someone that you know or that your partner knows, that borrowing of belief, it really allows you to keep going on the days when you think, ooh, do I keep going? Am I doing the right thing? Is this moving? Is this working? And I think that's really important, Suzie.
Oh, I
Suzie,
think absolutely. I had the best session yesterday with Tashka, learning how she's teaching me something that I can use with my meditations and things. And she was so high praise because I suppose of my age, and I said, it's all right. I know how to do all this techie stuff. And she said, oh, but it's so good. And then I tried something else in the afternoon and I was cursing whatever, and I lost it. So I just gave up, watched a movie, and this morning I'm back firing again. And I think I've always got Des to sound off at as well. And I think that makes a difference.
So another sort of flip side of the encouragement and the support is that, look, I'm in the picture, so just relax.
Oh, you are? Right.
Yeah. Okay. Right. You keep worrying about it.
Yeah.
I'm in the picture.
You're in the picture.
I can tell you're worrying about it. Anyway, the flip side of that is being a challenger, being kind of devil's advocate, so that sometimes I get, like, we both think, like, you both think creatively and we think creatively, we come up with ideas. Oh, why don't I do this? And Suzie is a very good, she reaches for the bucket of cold water now and again and says, how do you think you're going to get that done with everything else? So that's really good. Put it, as our mentor Kate says, put that in the car park, leave it, come back to it later. It might still be a good idea. So that's really valuable. And we also sometimes go through, if we've done some copy for content online, go through one another's and say, well, that could be better expressed in this way. So that's tremendously helpful.
That is amazing for me because I'm getting better particularly since working with Kate. My copy, actually over the last few years, my copy has improved. But I used to do stream of consciousness, and Des would say, well, I suppose other people know what you're talking about, but he would rein in my words, and and he's edited the first part of the book that I'm writing. Yeah, so that's good.
It's good. And we compliment each other most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah, well, I understand that one.
Let's be honest, there are times when we rub each other up the wrong way in business.
And I think that's something that we need to talk about, is that you need to be mindful when you work with your partner to not just become each other's punching bag, because there are going to be trials and tribulations in business, just as there are in life. And it's being able to create that separation between this is a business conversation and this is a relationship conversation. And just because I'm saying something about business that's not working out doesn't mean I'm saying our relationship's not working out. Sure. It's just there's a problem in the business. It's not a problem with you. It's not a problem with us. It's just a business problem. And that can be really tricky because, of course, you tend to fall into your normal patterns and programmings. And so the way that you language those concerns tend to come out in a very similar tone and language to the way that you would complain about something in the relationship. And so there's this period where I think what we do and what we strive to do, because it's not always something that happens, is you just have to go, okay, stop, absorb what's been said. What does that mean about me? What does that mean about him? Okay, nothing has any meaning, because we all know nothing means anything. And turn it around and go, okay, what is the actual problem here? What's the content? Remove any context, because when you take away the context or you move the content to a different context, what you actually do is remove the emotion from it. And once the emotion's removed, you can easily deal with the problem. That's right. I think that's a good way to deal with conflict, because there's always going to be conflict, isn't there?
Absolutely.
It's impossible. Even when you're working in a regular job, you can create conflict with people who are your employees or your employers. And it's a normal part of being human, because we all actually function on a different plane to each other. I just see Jess has asked a question. Do you think it's possible to run a highly successful business without someone so close? Absolutely, Jess. I can tell you that my very first business that I ran, which was a jewelry design company where we made jewelry out of crystals, which was my first business, I did have a business partner, but they weren't someone close to me. They were just a friend. And we had that business, that was in 2000, I think. And that business was up and making over 200,000 a year in its first year of business, which in those days was a pretty successful business.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I think you can do it without having a partner.
And before Suzie and I got together, I had my own business, and that went quite well. One of the things that are coming out of that is, I'd say, even if you don't have someone close that you're working with, build a group of people that you can rely on, that can talk about things, who know business. And I always remember one guy that I'd known before I went into business for myself, and he was a very good helper for me and guide when I got started. I always remember, because I had a consulting business, and he said, make sure you've got a lot of lines in the water. Don't just rely on one client. And that was great advice.
Yeah, I love it. A good fishing metaphor always works.
Yeah, yes.
I think having a support team around is really important.
And a lot of people like to help.
Yes, people do like to help.
People want to help. Successful people want to help other people be successful.
That's right. Yeah.
As people grow, they want to lift people up. And Des, I just want to go back to what you said about have many lines in the water. I think this is something really important as we move forward in life, is that one stream of income is never a great idea because the risk is high. And so if you look at our portfolio, we actually run 4 businesses, and the neuro-linguistic programming training is the largest of all of them. However, there's other ways of making passive income, ways of making low-touch income, and investments that create income. And some people say, you need money to do that. You have to be successful before you can have another business. No, there are so many businesses that you can enter for a low cost and a relatively low output required that will still make you money, provided you're wanting to move into that space and you're wanting to create something for yourself and your family.
That's really important, Liz, because I wrote out yesterday, as part of an exercise I was doing, where I want to be, where I see myself. Mine is actually on my birthday, and Christmas Eve at the end of this year. And one of the things I wrote down was was 3 big rocks, and one of my rocks is my Heart Whisper business. And the other rock is me speaking on stage. And the third rock was multiple streams of income, because I've decided I'm not good at doing one thing anyway. But I've been told I should do just one thing so often that things have been left hanging. And I decided from now, no, I work with Des in affiliate marketing, and we're going to keep doing that. I'm going to do my art and do my Heart Whisper and my coaching. And I feel really good about making that decision. But I think we have to be really careful that we don't get stuck in just doing one thing. And I mean, and Liz, just, if you want a great strategist, I've got one here and I've another one here on the screen who's actually taken my business and given me these 2 streams that I can actually see now how they work together. Whereas before I was really struggling to think, I've got to do this bit and this bit. Realize this is me. I'm all of these things. I'm this colorful person. This is all of my art and things. And I can have a sale online this weekend, as well as offer people readings and do different things, rather than thinking I had to keep it all compartmentalized.
And I think that's a metaphor for life, really, is that we often think that there's all these compartments to our life. There's us in business, there's us in work, there's us in play, there's us in trauma, there's us in despair, there's us in happiness and sadness. And it creates all these, what we would refer to in NLP as parts. And once you can integrate those parts, and particularly for the feminine, because it's natural for the feminine to want to collect, whereas the masculine wants to remove. So for a man, and not necessarily a man, but someone who is sat in their masculine energy, it's very easy to become focused and directed on one thing. Whereas for someone sat in the feminine energy, it's actually important that there's a variety of things to do, because that's how they create flow and momentum. And so you need to start like that. And you may find that if you're a woman watching, that as you start in business, there's lots of things that take your fancy and that pique your interest. And it's important to explore all of them. And then eventually you'll find that you can move into that divine feminine space where you have access to the masculine as well, where you can become more focused on 1 or 2 or 3 of them rather than on 20 of them. But that takes time and discipline.
So I think people get confused when there's lots of talk about concentrating on one thing.
Yeah.
But what it means, I think, is that to concentrate on one thing right now, and to say, this is the one thing I'm concentrating on now, and when that's done, I'll concentrate on the next thing. But they don't have to be all the same thing.
No.
It's just try not to do 2 things at once. Because then you really are dividing your attention, and you're not going to be 100% on any one thing.
Our dogs are out the back, and there's a canal maintenance boat going past.
Oh, that's all right. This is one of the joys of working from home, working with your partner, is we've got out here, we have children, there's a swimming pool behind us, but it's Friday, and wherever we seem to live on Friday, out come the gardeners with their whippersnippers, and I can hear them starting. And that's just one of those, in Sydney, we used to have the planes going over our head, right over our backyard.
Well, people who work in offices, they have their own distractions. So it's just, Anyway, I think one of the things that somebody said to me the other day is that working from home can be lonely. So coming back to what somebody was asking earlier about one person doing things, I think it really is important not to just get, if you're working on your own, or even if you're working as a couple, not to just get stuck behind the computer, and get out and meet up with people, and having a coffee because you want to have a chat, not because everything has to be a pitch.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's something that is rife in the business community at the moment, is that people meet up and they've got sales in the back of their mind because they're so desperate for money. And I get it, because there's this hard line in business where people say burn the boats. And it is a Tony Robbins thing, and I love Tony Robbins dearly. Yeah. But burning the boats is once you've committed. And if you actually listen to the way he says it, it's once you've decided to take the island, then you burn the boats.
Yes.
Problem is that people here burn the boats, and they burn the boats before they've arrived at the island. And so they don't actually have a territory to protect. And so then they're in this constant swimming between the boat and the island. And as they're swimming, what they need to build the bridge is actually money. And so they're in this desperation for the sale. And whenever you're selling from desperation or from that desire to get to the island, you're always going to be selling from a place of selfishness rather than selflessness. Because the word sell comes from the Norwegian word selje, S-E-L-J-E, with an accent, and it actually means to serve. And so sales is service. And there's the flip side of this. If you're someone who doesn't like being sold to and you don't like being pitched to, then I suggest it's a problem with being able to receive, because if sales is service, then being sold to is receiving. And that we all know that that's a major problem in life at the moment, because people find it really difficult to receive. And if we look at, I'm just going to go on a bit of a segue here for a moment. Originally, Valentine's Day was referred to as Lupercalia, and it was actually a Roman festival of fertility. And if we look in society now, and the massive amount of infertility for no diagnosed reason, so it's just unknown infertility, it's related to self-love. And
say that this is what we all need.
Important, and it's that ability to receive. And so if you're showing resistance to sales and you're showing resistance to being pitched, then there's probably a self-love issue underneath that somewhere. By the same token, if you're selling from a place of receiving, rather than from a place of giving, then the same thing. There's a self-love issue there, because the bridge can be built with money or love between the boat and the island. But the greatest advice I could give is keep going till you get to the island, then burn the boats. And, that's what we did, isn't it? We kept going until we got to a point where we owned the island. And that's when we retired Simon from his day job, which was June last year.
June, yeah.
And look, he's smiling too.
And one of his greatest pleasures is driving past a bus stop, not so much up here because there's not so many bus stops, but in Sydney, driving past a bus stop full of people dressed in their suit, which really is just a uniform, and waiting to go to work. And he was just so grateful that he didn't have to do that anymore.
Here's a little bit of relating to that. Here's a little bit of advice for somebody who's started out working from home, as a lot of us do, and starts to, and we take it's a sort of entrepreneurial thing. We take a risk when we leave the job with the steady pay, it comes in every fortnight or whatever, and other things like I had a car and all sorts of stuff when I moved out to go on my own. That was provided by somebody else. One of my antidotes, if I thought occasionally that maybe I hadn't made a great move, was to go into the city about 8 o'clock in the morning and stand in one of the big buildings and watch these people standing there with their coffee and looking as if they were going up to be executed.
Yeah. This is something
I remember feeling like that.
The body language, the blind looks. Amazing.
I remember getting up for work in the morning with butterflies, not wanting to, like, work being that distressing that I really didn't want to go.
Yeah.
It's been many a day like that.
And I think that's the thing, is people create this belief that the only way to have money and the only way to have an enjoyable life is to work hard.
Yes.
And then they think that working hard is working hard for someone else.
Yes.
And if they gave 8 hours of consistent applied effort to their own business every day, because let's face it, none of us give that much time every day, consistently and focus, we just don't. They would make as much money. And for us, we actually make more money now than what we ever made when both of us were in jobs. We just didn't make this much money, and we apply less effort and less time. Why? Because the time we apply is focused, and we know it's for us and our family and for the people that we serve. And it became really apparent to me in November last year. We were running a training, and there was a corporate training being run in the room next door. And all of these people, it was just an afternoon training. So at lunchtime, all of these people turned up in black, grey or navy blue suits.
Yes.
That was the only colour. Our room was full of colour. And they all stood facing the door. There was about 300 of them. They all stood facing the doors of the entrance to this conference room.
In silence.
And they stood in silence.
It was like a zombie apocalypse.
It was. We walked out of the room for our lunch, and it was like, what's happened here?
Yeah.
And it was this real realization that, oh my goodness, the whole school system and the work system has been set up to create a cookie cutter version of humanity in order to perform tasks that a workplace needs you to perform. And that's one form of discipline. And it's a punishment form of discipline.
Yeah.
The side of that is discipline without punishment, where it's a choice to be focused and to choose what we're disciplined in. And that's where you get to experience the excitement that is running your own business. Yeah. And, by doing that, you actually improve your relationship because you get to hang out together.
Yeah.
And
well, that's absolutely right.
Don't you fight all the time? Well, yes, we do fight sometimes. Let's be real. And the fights last a very small amount of time.
Yeah.
But small in my mind is less than a couple of hours. Small in Simon's mind is less than 2 minutes. But they do. They don't last very long, really. And you get back on track because you're both committed to the same goal and you both want it. But the flip side is that you can go out for lunch. You can go for a swim in the middle of the day. You can go to the movies if you want to in the middle of the day, and you don't have to be there when there's 100 other people there. You can
walk on the beach in the morning when everybody else is driving to
traffic,
work, driving to we saw
exactly, and that's so much better for your being.
Mm.
And, you know, we say we're human beings, not human doings. Now, yes, there's an element of action that needs to be taken in business, but there is that time where we need to be. And I see people regularly in our work, and that they get up, they shuffle kids off to school, they go to work, they get home, they run kids around to every sporting activity that they can find. Then they quickly cook dinner, they rush to get the kids into bed at a sensible hour, and then they pretty much collapse.
And drink several bottles of
or they
wine.
drink wine. Yeah, a lot of wine. And it's like, is that really living, or is that just existing to follow a schedule? And, you know, my belief is that it's existence, it's not life. So part of us working together, and I know it's the same for you guys, is that choosing life rather than existence is so important. And it's much easier to achieve when you're in business, and also easier to achieve when you're in love and in business.
Absolutely. And the other thing I was going to say there was a lot of people have to have business as a totally separate thing. Whereas when you work from home and you work in the way we do, I mean, it gets a bit intertwined. And I mean, I suppose because when you're loving what you're doing, that doesn't matter as much. But Liz, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What was it? Did you work in a job, corporate, and what was it that took you out of that?
So I was actually a midwife for 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of research in that role. I ran the stillbirth program for New South Wales Health, or I ran part of the stillbirth program for New South Wales Health, and created a lot of the current strategies that are in place to ensure that women never went home not knowing what had happened to their baby.
Right.
And that research was imperative for that to move forward. But I worked in a birth unit. The majority of the time it was happy births.
Yeah.
And I delivered a baby one day, and I popped it up onto the woman's chest, and it was a reasonable, normal birth. Like, there was not a lot of intervention. And I popped it up on her chest, and I looked at her, and I looked at the baby, and I felt nothing. And I walked out of the room, and I sat down at the desk, and I looked at my notes, and I wrote them, and I felt nothing. And I didn't even say to the woman, congratulations, or, oh, look how beautiful your baby is, or any of the normal pleasantries that midwives give mothers. And I walked back in, and I did the tasks that were required, but I still felt nothing. And it bothered me. And I thought, what is this? And someone said, oh, maybe you're just tired. You know, you've worked a lot of shifts. And I did work a lot of shifts, and we ran a busy birth unit. There was 17 rooms that were regularly full. And I went home and I told Simon, and he said, well, you know, sometimes you're going to have a bad day. And I thought, well, up until now, I really haven't. Up until now, there's been either enough adrenaline or enough love or enough feeling that I've wanted it. And so this happened several times, and I realized that maybe I was a bit burnt out. And so I decided to go and work on the maternity ward. And I got up there, and the first day there were all these mothers whinging about breastfeeding, because let's face it, breastfeeding is a challenge. And I didn't care. I thought they were whingers, and I didn't want to help them. And one lady buzzed 3 times, and I walked in and I said, what do you need? And I thought, oh, this is not okay. And I actually burst in, like, I walked out of the room and burst into tears and went in to see the manager, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't. But there was 21 years of my life invested in it.
Yeah.
And so the obvious choice for me was to move out of there. And then I went to university, and I lectured in nursing, and I also lectured in medicine at Sydney Uni for 4 years. And during that time, I realized that what we were teaching in universities wasn't necessarily reflective of the latest research.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily reflective of what was real. It wasn't reflective of people's experience. And the universe has a way of directing you exactly where you need to go, right? So whilst I was teaching in the Faculty of Medicine, I also became very sick. And I got sicker and sicker and sicker, and medicine couldn't fix it. And I had 47 operations in 3 years.
Wow.
And medicine couldn't fix it. And eventually I went along to a Tony Robbins seminar. Actually, that was the sort of key. And then found NLP and realized that a lot of the problems were not being caused by health. They were caused by the way that I languaged things to myself.
Mm.
So I would get sick and then, oh, poor me, I'm so sick. Why did this happen to me? Why me? Why me? And so that was really my exit from corporate, because at that point I was so sick I couldn't work anymore. And I had to do something. And I actually entered network marketing, first of all. So I ran a big network marketing business and did very well. I was in the top 2% of the world in that business. And I could do that from bed. And I would do live videos it was a makeup business, and I would do live videos putting my makeup on from bed. And then literally as soon as the video finished, I would take medication to numb the pain and fall asleep. And the bed was actually set up in my office, wasn't it? Like I would literally sit in bed running this business. And then as I got better and as I realized the way I could communicate with my mind and the way that I could heal my own body, that was really when I decided that business was for me and that it was time to fully invest in business. And I think over the next few years, we spent a lot of money, probably $500,000 in investment into ourselves. And we continue to invest in ourselves. And through that, we have a great life now. You know, we've just moved.
I think there's the one fundamental thing that I see over that whole period was the loss of identity. Because being a nurse had been Liz's identity.
Yeah.
And so there was a period, even while she was ill, where she just didn't know who she was or what her purpose was or what she was meant to be. And finding the personal development and partly through doing network marketing, because network marketing does encourage people to do personal development.
It does.
That, and partly through her own journey, actually beginning to find herself again.
Yeah.
And create the new Liz.
Yeah, which wasn't
Liz 1.2.
Which really isn't a new version. It's actually a return to the childlike state.
Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, I think that's amazing. Thank you.
Because it's about moving back into joy and moving back into passion. Where, Jess has just written she was, understanding not feeling anything in a role that you should. I was completely desensitized. I'd had enough births that had gone well. I'd had enough births that had gone poor that it didn't mean anything anymore. And this is where that creation of meaning becomes so important, because the purpose of life, like you said before, Des, is to be happy. And I think you said greatness, but the purpose of life is to be happy.
Yeah.
Your role in life is to find what makes you happy.
Yes.
And I know that Joseph Campbell, his whole thing is follow your bliss.
Yeah.
And so it's a quest, it's always the hero's journey, the quest to find your bliss. And when you're feeling it and finding it, then stay there for a little while and enjoy it. And then you'll find that it disappears too, because we live in an ever-growing world and an ever-changing world, and we change just as quickly as it. And so your bliss changes too, doesn't it? Like, something that satisfies you for 21 years suddenly becomes something that's not okay anymore. And so you move forward.
So we all have different reasons on different ways of how we left jobs, corporate worlds. And I mean, mine was an interesting one. I'd been a teacher for nearly 20 years. So similar thing. I had a break in the middle, and I mean, I'd done a lot of traveling and I've taught in different things, and I've been a governess, but I was training childcare workers in TAFE, and I'd been acting in a job for 2 years, and I expected to get the job. I'd gone off to do a course in what's now social ecology, social communication, thinking, right, this will be great for my leadership and everything like that. And I was sitting in a spiritual retreat. I used to belong to something called the Movement for Spiritual Awareness with John Roger. And I got pulled out, and they were told it was a phone call. And it was probably a good place to be, to say, I'm really sorry you didn't get the job. And then I had a call from the principal saying, well, you've got to appeal. And I said, no, I'm not appealing. And I had just started, I've been to a holiday on Club Med, and I just started painting on silk. And I thought, oh, this is great. So I thought, this is the person who at 12 was told they couldn't do art. So I couldn't draw, so I couldn't do art. So I never got to do art. I did do textiles. So I went part-time, went to a different college part-time, and set up what was then Suzie, because I didn't want to use my name, but became Suzie Cheel Hand-Painted Originals, which was a really, really successful business. And then things changed. But that was my break into, really being, I was living by myself at the time. I just bought a house, a new house. And I fortunately had very supportive parents who for many years helped me do craft shows. And, we should get the photo of you. I've got a beautiful photo of Des in one of my hand-painted shirts with a hat on. He used to be my model. But so that was that. But then that business changed. So businesses change. And we also, and I've had illness and things as well, which have, where I have healed myself as well. But what I love what Liz talks about, and I think we can all think about the language, because Des often says to me, you taught me this. Why are you using that language?
That's right.
Frequently. So I'm really, for those people who think, life's not working quite so well at the moment, get your partner to pull you up on your language.
Do we have any questions there?
No, Liz answered the question.
Go on.
I can see more people. I wish people say hello, but they're obviously just enjoying the conversation.
I think that we're kind of touching on this in various ways, that it is possible to have a business with your partner, whether it's the same business or doing business together, crossover, or quite different, but supporting one another. And it's good to have some boundaries. Like sometimes at about 10 o'clock at night, Suzie will want to talk to me about something about business. I say, no, tomorrow, can't cope anymore.
Yeah, and those boundaries are important. So we have a rule that I don't see clients on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I choose, obviously it's Friday. We're choosing to do this morning. Yeah. And if I choose to go out with somebody for lunch or whatever, then that's okay. But I don't do any booked client calls on a Friday. Right. And we set that up so that we definitely had a day a week where we just did what we wanted to do. Yes. And sometimes what we want to do is business, because when you're on purpose and you're in passion and you are moving forward towards your goal, then business is your life. There is no distinction between work and play. It's all part of the same thing.
Well,
and that's
the one thing I wanted to say earlier on was about work-life balance. There isn't.
There's no such
balance.
thing.
There's just life.
Yes.
Life is life. And when you're on purpose,
I think that is so good. There are so many people out there who say we must have work-life balance. They teach it, they train in it.
And they often don't have it.
And they often, we often need to teach. We teach what we need to learn. But I think that's really important, Simon. Yeah.
Well, how can you say that when you're at work, you're not alive? It's not your life.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the majority of your life. So
absolutely.
And that's so many people, isn't it? They'll be 5 o'clock, come 5 o'clock this afternoon. They'll be off to the pub or off somewhere else. And then there'll be the weekend. And then on Sunday night, they have the Monday morning. Oh, God, I've got to go back to work. Well, we've never had that.
What day of the week it is.
And it's even, we have no idea what day of the week it is usually. And it's like, what day is it? Oh, or we go to ring a business and it's Sunday. And it's like, right. Why are they not open today? Oh, it's Sunday.
That's right. I mean, we've all just been on a 6-day training, or 3 of us have been on a 6-day training, where it started on a Saturday, and we were working Saturday, Sunday, and we didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
No. And
I mean, one of it was Australia Day. I mean, a lot of people would never work on Australia Day.
Yeah, true. And when you look at that training, the amount of fun that we had in it.
Lots
of fun.
I have, like you, I mean, we've done Tony Robbins. We've spent thousands of dollars on different trainings and
Personal
things
growth.
like that, personal growth. But those 6 days, and we're going to give Kate and Jeffrey a plug.
Absolutely.
They in May they will be in Perth.
They being
Kate Chiffy Gray and Jeffrey Slater. I will put the link in here at the end. They will be in Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, and the Gold Coast for
no, okay,
2-day a 2-day workshop, and up until midnight tonight, you can get, I think it's 40% off. You can actually go.
I think it's 60% off.
60% off.
Let me find it. Here it is.
It's still a very low.
Book by tonight and get 60% off your tickets, and it's called the Accelerator.
Yes.
And we're all going.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it's just, something very, very special. So if you want to, and there were quite a lot of couples there working together. There's quite a lot of couples who are working with Kate and Jeffrey, who were there for those 6 days that we were there. But there'll be another lot there this weekend. So I'm going to tag a few people in here, and I did a post today. Tag a few people who I know could just stretch a bit more, because they will stretch you.
Absolutely.
They have definitely stretched you.
Absolutely. And that's another thing I just want to mention before we jump off is there's a world where people love being triggered because they recognize that those triggers are where they need to step up and grow. And then there's regular society where triggers are bad and don't trigger me and this is terrible. The world where we live, where the triggers are great and you recognize them and you see how they highlight the growth that's required, it actually moves you forward.
Yes.
And so some people don't think it's okay to come to a 2-day event or a 6-day event, or we run a 14-day event. And people think, I couldn't possibly take 14 days out of my business. But what if those times were the times that changed your life? Yes. What if those times were the times that gave you back what you wanted? And I know the 6-day training that we just all did was something where for me, it created a massive amount of financial abundance, but it also connected me with people who I probably wouldn't have met had it not been for that event. And those people already are having an impact in my life and I'm having an impact in theirs. And there's this natural order to it, because in the olden days, you lived in a tribe, but every now and then you went and visited another tribe. And if we take the Pacific Islands, for example, once a year they had a pretty big meeting in Hawaii, and then they would all sail back to their respective islands and take away the knowledge and the learnings from each other. And yet people here don't do that. They live in their walls, in their tribe, in their house, and they very rarely venture out other than to work, where they often don't learn anything. Yeah. They're often just told. And so I think going to events and investing in events is a really important part of growing yourself and growing your business.
Oh, I think, and this has been, I feel like I really have a new tribe. I have people who have a common purpose, who love being challenged. And I just feel that there's a whole lot more support when you find that, and it's really important. I think it's so important. We heard yesterday somebody, they don't go out, very sad.
And I think one of the nice things was to see that with that, when we did that 6 days, there were quite a few young couples who obviously were very happy being there, growing together as people, sharing their journey and sharing their business and sharing their success.
Yeah, and it's that shifting paradigm. It's them, it's us who are a bit older, and then you who are older again, giving permission. Saying this is okay, you can do it. And the thing is it doesn't just affect you; it has a beautiful ripple effect. Like, I know our eldest son has got some work out of it, and because of all the connections, he's managed to get some work experience with a guy that we met there, and that feels good for me because I know who that person is.
Yeah.
That's right. I think that, and I think that's it. That's just it. And it's just you've got more people you can ask.
Yes.
And I think that's been one of my biggest learnings, just about life. We can all finish with a tip. Mine is remember to ask. Ask your partner. I forget sometimes. I'll stew on things. He will pick it up now, of course. But, this man is my best support. He supported me through, a near-death experience. And I put these special earrings on today because it's a very funny story. I was buying a green dress that some of you will have seen in photos and things like that in a beautiful shop that doesn't exist anymore in Coolangatta. And Des went over to where the jewelry was and said, I think you should get these. They just match the dress beautifully. So he has this amazing touch. And sometimes we forget, I think, to really value that person who I walk on the beach with most days, I cook for and things. But sometimes I just forget to acknowledge them. And I just love your morning practice. So we have a new morning practice, but I often get up earlier than Des, so I have to jump
anyway,
back
I
into
feel
bed.
very acknowledged, and I acknowledge you for all the wonderful things you do to support me.
Thank you, darling. And have you got a tip for people as we're leaving? And then I'll ask Simon and Liz.
A tip.
A tip for couples, lovers in business.
Yeah. Realize that business, as Simon was saying, is part of life, and there will be challenges. And if you go into business together, or you've got two different businesses, when a challenge comes up, that's all it is. It's a challenge. As you were saying, is what meaning you put on it. It's not the end of the world. And usually, if things don't seem so great today, just step back a bit and you can work it out. Because if you go into a job, you're going to have challenges. You're going to have, workmates who are disturbed. You're going to have bosses who are sociopaths. It's not all plain sailing. Not doing a business, but a business. If you can work through those things, there's an immense amount of joy to be had.
And Simon?
So I just think when there's conflict between you and your partner, always remember, firstly, that everyone's highest intention is love. So they're coming from a place of love. So understand that when you're not hearing what they're saying in a way that's positive, it's probably because you're not understanding it rather than it's not meaning to be negative. So always step back from feeling like something is being delivered in a negative way and try and understand that you're not hearing it in the way it's meant to be delivered. So it may not be being delivered correctly, but what you're hearing is not what's meant to be delivered.
I think that's really important. And one of the things Des says, we never go to bed not having resolved something is really important. And Liz, final tip.
That's interesting you said that. That's actually a biblical principle, Matthew 26. It is, never go to bed on your anger. And it's really important. And, the Bible is an interesting personal development book if you can read it that way. Yes. It's got a lot of good advice. But my tip is to keep going. Mm-hmm. I think people give up too quickly.
Yes.
We live in a bit of a throwaway society. We throw away marriages, we throw away children, we throw away stuff. And the thing that makes you successful in business is your tenacity, the ability to keep going. Mm. And so whenever anyone asks me for any kind of advice, whether it's personal or business, my answer is keep going. Because if you have a goal, as long as you keep going, eventually you'll get there. It's only when you stop or stray that you won't. So, just keep going.
Great advice.
Thank you very much. Well, we want to wish everybody, and there will be, I have quite a large North American fan base who will watch the replay. Wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. And for the people And for the people who are in the Northern Hemisphere, it is still International Self-Love Day, which I was mentioning yesterday. I'm an ambassador for Christine Alio. We've been doing this for 13 years, and it is so important. We have our love for Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
but it's, as Liz mentioned, as I'm always talking about, loving ourselves is so important to being able to receive, to living what I call an abundant life.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I want to thank all of you for being here. I think this has been lots of fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the people
Beautiful.
who've been watching. I love everybody. And I will be back same time next week. I'm not 100% sure who this one is because they haven't confirmed. But then remember, on the last Friday of each month, Beth Elaine Haynes, another intuitive psychic, is here with me. And on the 3rd of March, my numerologist friend Bobby will be here at 3rd of the 3rd. I think we're doing 3 p.m. I think it's not, yes, he's still doing late at night. So we're doing that. And then we have somebody who's coming on who has written all these books on gratitude. So it's all being mapped out, and I'm going to put a schedule up so that the people who ask me, oh, I missed it, I didn't know what was on, will know what's coming.
And don't forget to check out the details about Kate and Jeffrey in May, because it will be a brilliant experience.
I will drop links in.
Today's the last day for the special.
Yeah, today's the last day. And even
after that, it's still only a modest amount.
For what you're going to get. Yeah, so I'll be dropping those links in, and for anybody who would like maybe to give yourself a Valentine's Day gift, is the link for my cards as well.
Well done.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody.
See you later.
Happy Valentine's Day. Bye.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Liz.
Bye.